Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a great pleasure to introduce to you the speaker for today's Jumu'ah, inshallah, Dr. Shameem Jaumdally. Dr. Shameem is actually from Mauritius, but he has studied at the University of Cape Town, and he's completed his PhD. He's an expert in virology, vaccinology, immunology. Dr. Jaumdally is very much an expert in this area, doing a lot of research, and inshallah he will enlighten us about this very important issue. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome today's speaker, Dr. Shameem. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Shukran to the MSc again for this platform to share a little bit of the knowledge that I managed to receive from the position where I'm working right now. I am presently a researcher at the Lung Institute where we have been involved in a few vaccine programs so far. My aim today is to try to provide some clarity with regard to the COVID vaccine and more specifically the Johnson & Johnson and the Astra Zeneca one. My purpose also is to try use you as a vehicle to carry this message and to carry this information to your family and relatives and friends so that they can understand better what's happening. I know there is a lot of fear and there's a lot of panic among people because there's so little information that are available on these vaccines, which are classified as relatively new vaccines in the extent of the rollout that is happening right now. I just want to first point out that these vaccines are safe. They have been used in human clinical trial for over 15 years now, more specifically HIV vaccine trial, and the first recombinant viral vector vaccine, which is the case of the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca right now, that has been commercialized and made widely available, was in the instance of the Ebola vaccine developed by Johnson & Johnson that used the same system. And this vaccine has so far been proven to be safe and quite efficacious because you can see that they managed to actually curb and get rid of the Ebola outbreak that happened around 3-4 years ago. So to start with the two vaccines, let's develop a little bit of a timeline. So for the AstraZeneca vaccine, which was the first one that was identified and earmarked to roll out in South Africa, we got to a point where they actually decided to drop it and to choose the Johnson & Johnson. And I want to clarify the reason behind this. So the way it's reported by the media and a lot of people who do not really understand the numbers and the science behind it, it's got nothing to do with the science. It's got nothing to do with the clinical findings that they found that actually led them to decide, you know what, we're not going to use this because it doesn't work. The statement of the AstraZeneca vaccine doesn't work is not valid. Let me explain. When we do a vaccine trial, there are specific numbers and specific endpoints. Endpoints means the parameters that we need to study and that we are trying to capture, right? So whenever we do a vaccine trial, like any other medication trial for that matter, treatment trial, we have what we call a power calculation to take into consideration. The power calculation is done by a statistician, and this tells us how many people do we need to enroll in any specific trial so that we can have the power and the confidence to make inference and actually generalize that to the broader population. So we have to reach a certain target and we have to be able to measure endpoints to be able to make these inferences. So what happened for the AstraZeneca vaccine, for example, the second element that came to cloud and made everything a little bit more grainy was the emergence of genetic variant, where the virus in circulation in different places across the world were found out to be a little bit different, and maybe even different enough to actually cause the vaccine to not have the same level of efficacy. So the AstraZeneca vaccine was the first vaccine that was rolled out in the form of a trial in South Africa. And that vaccine was initially started in trial around June, July. And that was initiated by Prof. Shameem Jaumdally at Wits University, and eventually there were a few sites around South Africa, including the one that we had at UCT, led by the Learning Institute, where we also enrolled people. And that was a phase 2 trial. Now what you need to understand is, in a phase 2 trial, the type of participant that we can enroll is also limited by the profile of these participants. A phase 2 trial is still a broader trial assessing efficacy and safety. Okay, this is the first level where we assess efficacy, does the vaccine work, but it is also reinforcing the idea of safety. So because we had to also confirm the element of safety in the vaccine at that level in phase 2, it meant that we could only enroll people who were relatively younger and who were devoid and had no comorbidities, so that they would not present as risky people to test that vaccine in. Now, what we measure in terms of endpoints for the vaccines are variable. Some people may measure, does the vaccine protect against infection? Other people may measure, does the vaccine actually prevent the development of symptoms? But what we know and what we want from a vaccine primarily is to protect the most vulnerable. These are the people who will develop severe disease that will lead to hospitalization or even death. And these people, from the experience that we've had with COVID right now, we know that there are people who are generally older and people who have some form of comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, and some other comorbidities. And unfortunately in South Africa, when we were leading that phase 2 trial here, we did not enroll these people. And then what happened? The variant hit. So now there were two questions. Does the vaccine protect against the variant, and does the vaccine protect against severe disease in general? So now, because that variant in South Africa started around, we think probably around September, and we were still in phase 2 trial, the people we were enrolling were not people that would be able to provide us with evidence that that vaccine actually protected against the development of severe disease. Because in phase 2, we could only enroll people who would not normally have the chance to develop severe disease, being hospitalized, or even might be at greater risk of death. So what it necessarily led to, in summary, is that unfortunately in South Africa, because the Astra Zeneca vaccine was tested in phase 2 trial, it enrolled people who would not fit the bill to develop severe disease. So we could not answer the question of whether the AstraZeneca vaccine was protective against severe disease against the South African variant. For example, in Scotland and the UK, where the AstraZeneca jab has been rolled out massively right now, more data is coming out, not from clinical trial, but from these population rollout, where the government has the capacity to investigate what is the level of infection in people who have been vaccinated, what is the level of protection in people who have not received the vaccine yet, and they did the same comparison for the number of people who developed severe disease and required hospitalization and death across the two groups as well. And clearly, they have shown that there is significant evidence to show that the vaccine protects against the development of severe disease or death in this country. But then again, remember that we have the element of the variant. From our scientific perspective, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that was rolled out at phase 3 level could answer all these questions. And luckily for them, what had happened was that they started their phase 3 trial later. Okay, they applied to start their trial in South Africa and test their vaccine in South African subject later than AstraZeneca. So what it meant was AstraZeneca at that time could not actually lobby to get a phase 3 trial because they were still waiting for data around the world to show the safety of their vaccine. But the Johnson & Johnson, by the time they started in South Africa, we already had data around the safety of their vaccine in other places, which meant that they got the go-ahead from SAPRA and the regulatory authorities to test their product in phase 3 trial. Eventually, when that happened, they could enroll people who developed the severe disease. They could make the inference that the vaccine, as we know now in South Africa, can protect up to 64%. So this means that almost 2 out of 3 people who would have had the risk of developing severe disease, being hospitalized or even dying, are now protected against that. This is what the efficacy can be interpreted as, right? So we know that in the US there is an overall efficacy of 72%. In South Africa it was reviewed up to 64% from 57%, and this is happening as data is rolling in. Again, vaccine trials and treatment trials are trials that are generally very, very rigorous. There are so many approvals that we need, there are so many follow-ups that are required. And there is nothing that is left, just like that to chance. The number, every time a person falls ill, whether it's like a runny nose, whether it's like a cough, whether it's like, like an allergic reaction to something, we call them in. If they can't come to our site, we will dispatch a driver to them to make sure that these people are picked up and they are assessed by a specialist physician in our clinical trial unit. This is the rigor that goes into all this. So now for the Johnson & Johnson, the rollout that is happening in South Africa in the healthcare professional right now is what we call an implementation trial. So a lot of people have been equating this to, like using the healthcare workers as cobaye to test if the vaccine is working. Let me give you the reason behind why this is done this way. And maybe you guys know this, but right now, to be able to enroll into this vaccination program for the healthcare worker, you need to sign a consent, okay? The reason why this is happening this way and why the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is being rolled out as an implementation trial right now, there are 2 reasons for that. The first reason, I don't know if you guys remember, but when the Astra Zeneca doses that were meant to be used in South Africa were shipped into the country, there was a 14 days quarantine or window period where the authorities were evaluating the stability of the vaccine, the general conditions of the packaging that we received. They had to count how many vials were broken, and on top of that, what you need to keep in mind is that these vaccines that were received then came from the Serum Institute in India, whereas the vaccine that we used for our trial here in South Africa came from Europe. So as soon as you are changing the place where you're receiving the vaccine and the plant where these vaccines are made, SAHPRA is very strict. They will want to have a look and an investigation into the vaccine to make sure that they're safe. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine that was shipped for the implementation trial and the vaccination program in the healthcare worker here in South Africa came from Belgium. These are the very same vaccines that had already been checked and approved by SAHPRA for the trial, which meant that we did not have to wait that 14-day period, if we were going to get the vaccine from somewhere else, for them to evaluate that. This is the first reason why that vaccine is being rolled out as an implementation trial. Now, an implementation trial, what is that? An implementation trial is when we know we have enough data that the vaccine has a level of efficacy that's deemed good enough for its use, but also that it has passed a safety profile where we know it will not cause any form of serious adverse event in people, okay? So they are using an implementation trial because, as I told you, the question that we have to answer regarding the efficacy of vaccines and to a certain extent the safety of vaccine can only be answered with confidence when we have the numbers for this. What is happening right now, the trial investigators in South Africa are giving SAHPRA, which is our FDA equivalent, the data in different batches. The first 2 batches of the data has already been submitted, and the 3rd batch, from my understanding, is or has been submitted already and is under evaluation. And there's a 4th batch of data that will then be given to complete the data set that SAHPRA needs to make a judgment on whether they will approve the vaccine or not, which is the only reason right now why SAHPRA has not approved that yet. In a way, it is testament to the rigor of both SAHPRA and the trial investigators to make sure that the vaccine that they are trying to roll out is safe and efficacious. Okay? Now I'm going to touch briefly on some of the reports regarding adverse event and serious adverse event that have resulted from vaccination. Okay, a lot of these reports have come across the different vaccines that are being used right now, whether it's the mRNA vaccine Pfizer and Moderna or the Johnson & Johnson, and especially the Astra Zeneca. Let me take the last report that came out, for example. Some of you may have heard that the Astra Zeneca vaccine rollout has been put on pause in countries like Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, and some of the Nordic European countries. And the reason for this, the claim was that the vaccine has potentially led to the formation of blood clot in certain people who received them. And you know, I am a scientist first and foremost, but alhamdulillah, I've been able, through the supervisor and the mentors that I had learned under, to learn more about numbers through biostatistics and epidemiology. And it is extremely complex, and you need to actually use evidence and fact based on the numbers and interpret them like the right way. For example, they talk about the incidence of anaphylactic shock to vaccine. Right now, it's still sitting at around 2 to 5 per million people vaccinated. When I say anaphylactic shock, I'm talking about those responses and allergies that require you to be hospitalized or to seek medical help. Not, like itchiness or like, anything that is less severe. But now, do you know that aspirin has a rate of 1 to 2% of anaphylactic risk in the general population? Does that mean we need to stop aspirin and remove it from the shelf? Penicillin-based medication has an anaphylactic rate of 8 to 12% in the general population. We still widely use them. For the blood clot now that was reported for the AstraZeneca vaccine, 1 in 1,000 people at any time, anywhere around the world, is at risk of developing blood clots. So all these things are things that happen in real life. Receiving the vaccine does not necessarily mean that this is the reason that has caused you to have blood clot or anaphylactic shock. And again, if you look at the credible report, I'm not talking about media sites that are news related or like social media related, but proper credible scientific link like the FDA, the CDC, SAPRA, or any of these types of regulatory bodies that have an understanding of that, you will see that they will tell you that none of these have been linked to vaccination. So it's very important to make sure that the source of the information that we're using is the right one. And also in the interpretation of what is being reported, we need to understand it. And if you want to spread that message, you also need to understand how to do that. That's extremely, extremely important. Otherwise, that's how we end up with a community where there are so many fears around certain issues because the reports are not right. So, in terms of, to finish off, why do we need a vaccine right now and why is it so urgent? A lot of people will tell you, what, I'll wait for the people to get it and then I'll see what happens. Or you will have some people who tell you, what, when we look at the clinical trial, the Gov website, for example, we see that these vaccines trial are only ending in 2023. So why are they using it already? The reason for this is because for every product that you put out, like a vaccine or a medication that you will be using for a treatment, there is a follow-up period that is mandatory to make sure that the safety profile is covered. That safety profile, I've already told you that in post-trials in human subject, we have already confirmed that there is no risk that we know of, in the broader population. So we need it right now because there is a sense of urgency based on the rate of mutation and those variants that are coming out and popping up all around the world. Yalla, do you know that the country that's doing the most amount of sequencing right now is the UK, which is why they've been able to pick up what they call the Kent variant. The second country in the world that's leading sequencing right now is the US, 1% of all samples, or even less than 1%. South Africa Alhamdulillah managed to pick up the variant that we had in circulation here, because right at the beginning of the epidemic, the sequencing people and the bioinformatician decided, you know what, we're going to put every other sequencing, whether it's TB, whether it's HIV on hold, and we're going to focus on that, because we know that this virus will have a deep rate of penetration in the community based on the way people live here and the comorbidities that we know we have in South Africa. Therefore, we will sequence that. And that's how we found out about what everybody refers to the South African variant right now. Okay? So if we don't stop this, if the virus keeps replicating and propagating in people, this is where we have a greater risk of actually, developing mutation in this virus that will render the vaccine that we have right now inefficacious. Okay, so this is the sense of urgency that we have. We want to vaccinate people because we have already shown that the level of efficacy is there. For Johnson & Johnson, it protects 64% of people who receive it from developing severe disease. Pfizer and Moderna, 95% efficacious against the first variant that was in circulation. Astra Zeneca has shown the same thing in the European country where it has been used. And right now, other than the vaccine and the behavior of people, we have nothing to stop that. So this is why I think that vaccination is extremely important. And we have, I can tell you this, because I have been part of the whole process evaluating the safety, and I can tell you the rigor that goes in that is absolutely enormous. So inshallah, we will get on top of this epidemic that we have right now, inshallah, we will have like a greater batch of the vaccine that will be shipped into the country very soon. And inshallah, we will be able to have Ramadan that will be a little bit different this year, where we have Taraweeh. But please know that, even though the cases have dropped right now and the numbers are low, it's still in circulation in the community. So we still need to be very careful with regard to our infection control measures. Shukran for your attention today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Jazakallah Dr. Jaumdally for that very informative talk. Inshallah, we all walk away from this with a better perspective of what's going on with the vaccines most recently. Just a few announcements. An appeal to apply to join our subcommittees if you can, inshallah. All our subcommittee applications are open. You can find the links on our latest newsletters, inshallah.